You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marcagiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Hope everyone is doing phenomenal. We just got off here the Thanksgiving Day holidays. Evan, how are you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was great. I think I probably got gluten somewhere along the way, but I feel like a lot of us probably did, even though I tried. And I did take my special enzymes to break down my gluten exposure, the DPP4 enzyme. So hopefully I mitigated some of my risk.
That's great. Now, what did you do for your meals for Thanksgiving? I can kind of go over mine. I'll actually pull up my my smartphone. I get some pictures. So with mine, a couple things. I did applewood turkey. So I smoked my turkey on my smoker. And it's pretty cool. I got these Bluetooth thermometers. So they go into the turkey and then they like transmit to my phone or my iPad. And I have a nice little graph. And I can set like an alarm as soon as it hits like in that zone temperature wise, like around 162 to 165 Fahrenheit for turkey, whole turkey without stuffing. And then I can pull it off. So it allows me to time it up to the exact like minute for the turkey. So that allows it to come out nice and moist and it does an amazing job. So that was pretty cool. And let me show you here. See if I can get it up.
Yeah, I was jealous of your applewood smoked. I mean, that sounded delicious. I just did a standard turkey in the oven that was in a little bag with different marinade of herbs. It was still delicious.
Yeah, so I got so right there. That's my smoker. Ooh. So you can see it with my like 18-pound pasture-fed, pasture-fed, free-range, organic, like really good quality turkey. Spent a little extra money on that. And then here's the meal. So I did obviously some organic potatoes there. The gravy was celery and carrot based, which was awesome.
Cool.
Brussels sprouts, bacon, squash with some cinnamon and grass-fed butter. And then you don't see it here, but I also have some cranberry sauce too, which was like organic cranberries, tiny bit of honey, a little bit of orange peel zest. So it was excellent.
That's great. Yeah, I did mostly meats. I did do some sweet potato. One of our cousins had made like a sweet potato dish with brown sugar and cinnamon, and it was so good. I was like, dude, how much sugar is in this? It tastes a little too good. It almost like turned it into a brown sugar glaze on the sweet potato. And I was just tracking my blood sugar for fun over the weekend. And I tell you, I feel much, much better with starch. I think I've gone too low carb. You know, we talk a lot about lower carb and ketogenic diets, and there's a lot of benefit. But for somebody like me, who's a thinner guy with a quite high metabolism, I just don't adapt well if I don't have some sort of carbohydrate. If I just go straight meat and like peas or meat and green beans or leafy greens, I don't know. Maybe it's an adrenal component, but I feel better with starch. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, totally. Again, starch can be really helpful for people's blood sugars and adrenal, especially if you're more ectomorph. You may really benefit with a little bit extra carbohydrate. For desserts for me, I did an apple cake, and it was using tapioca flour, which is like cassava based, which is more of a starchy tuber. And then it also used a little bit of coconut flour. And then we did some Granny Smith apples, tiny bit of like organic palm cane sugar, which is like a very low glycemic index, but just a very kind of minor sprinkling. And then of course some grass-fed butter and it came out really, really good, and relatively lower on the glycemic side and grain free, which is nice.
Yeah, my wife made some pumpkin muffins with almond flour, and I want to say she did some arrowroot flour as well.
Yeah.
Almond flour, arrowroot, a little bit of cinnamon, a few other things. I did that and put some almond butter on those bad boys. I guess that's a dessert. I'm not really into like super sweet stuff like cookies or cakes or.
Yeah, I don't like the too sweet as well. I think you can make a lot of these desserts and really keep the sugar and the carbohydrate content down. So that's great. Any other tips or substitutes that you did over Thanksgiving that helped?
I mean, I honestly, I got to divert back to the enzyme piece because enzymes are kind of my insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
There's several that you and I manufacture and use, and a lot of our enzymes have the DPP4 enzyme in there, which does break down gluten. So if people, if they're trying to stay away from gluten, they don't want to offend the family, or their family just straight up doesn't know, hey, what was in that gravy? Well, if you're taking some extra enzymes, you can prevent any issues. If you're somebody who's going to react, and let's say you're going to have a major skin flare or an autoimmune flare, like a joint pain flare or something.
Yeah.
You almost feel paralyzed, like you can't go to family events. So I would say if you're in that category of very sensitive people, dairy, casein, whey, whatever type of sensitivity you have, you can take enzymes like protease to help break that stuff down. So that's what I would do. And that's what I did.
On my Thanksgiving Day table, I had HCl and enzymes and activated charcoal out. So I said, hey, feel free and utilize these. And some of the people came in there and did that. We hosted the Thanksgiving, so we provided almost all the food. So we were able to have everything grain-free and organic. People didn't even know. A lot of people that were there don't eat that way. Yeah. And they had no complaints. They didn't even know, which tells you, right, that you can eat this way, that you can find healthy substitutions, and it totally can fly underneath the radar.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a billboard that says that it's this, that, and that, and that it has to be so, quote, different to your family members. It can be a totally normal diet.
100%. So those are some good substitutions. Potatoes, I'm okay with. High quality turkey, up the quality, right? That's a big one. I also say stuffing's a big one. You can use a great celery, carrot kind of mix, a little bit of coconut flour to thicken it up. Everyone had our gravy and was like raving about it. You got more vegetables in your gravy than you could imagine. And then, of course, Brussels sprouts, cranberry didn't have a whole bunch of sugar in it, good quality turkey. Potatoes are okay, good heavy cream and or grass and butter in there. So, yeah, great substitutions there. Anything else you want to add about your Thanksgiving?
I would like to have some wild turkey. I was on a hunt. I was almost going to get a wild turkey, but I had so much fun watching them that I had the potential to shoot one with my bow, and I passed because it was just so fun watching all these little turkeys talk to each other. They weren't little. Right. They're actually humongous turkeys, but they were having so much fun together. I thought, I'm going to pass. But maybe next year I'm going to have some wild turkey, which I've heard is even better than like a farm-raised turkey.
That's great, man. Very cool. So we talked about today, it's the holidays, it's cold season. What can we do to boost your immune system? I've done a couple of articles in the past on this. If you go to justinhealth.com and you put in what to do when you get sick, there's a part 1 and a part 2. Check that out. We'll be kind of going over some of the clip notes today. We've done some previous podcasts on these topics as well. I'm getting over a cold now. I mean, I just have a little bit of little post-nasal drip and just a little bit of congestion, but overall I feel great. Energy's great. Mood's great. No throat soreness, no irritation, no fatigue. So I'm feeling good. Just a little minor frog in the throat, so to speak, and a little bit of post-nasal drip, but overall I feel pretty good. I'm on right now higher dose vitamin C and then a couple of different immune cocktails. One's called Immunosuppressant that has some reishi mushroom in there. It has higher dose andrographis, astragalus, echinacea root. Those are really, really profound. And I'm also doing some silver and some golden seal as well. So we can kind of talk about some of the individual ingredients and walk that through, and also higher dose vitamin D as well.
Yeah, vitamin D, that's the low-hanging fruit. Now, you've talked about dosing 50,000 a day for a few days? I know typically you're only doing maybe 5,000 to 8,000 on a regular basis though?
For vitamin D, I ratcheted up 100,000 IUs for 3 days. Right now, I'm just on 10 to 20,000 with some K in it as well. But right now, I'm doing vitamin C up to 8 to 10 grams a day. I'm currently doing, astragalus, 1 to 2 grams a day. I'm on a higher dose of reishi mushroom extract, about 500 milligrams per capsule. And I'm at about, 8 to 12 caps a day. to get my immune system revved up. Then I'm also doing a couple of shots of colloidal silver in my GI Clear 3 cocktail. One thing I need to be doing more of, I haven't been able to do it as much, but it's a game changer. I probably have my post-nasal drip knocked out, which is the ginger tea recipe. The ginger tea is excellent. I've been doing a lot of like Topo Chico mineral water with like juice lime in there, and that's really helpful for drainage. But the ginger tea, where you juice those 2 or 3 ginger pieces, add 12 to 14 ounces of hot water, and then you add a half a lime in there and a tiny bit of honey, wild clover and manuka, it works phenomenal, and it's very helpful for drainage and post-nasal drip and for coughing. So that works excellent.
Sounds like you need to take your own advice.
Well, I've been doing it. I have a product called Ginger Tussin that's a ginger syrup. I just need to get the ginger. I just haven't had a chance to get to Whole Foods to get the ginger. I got a couple pieces in my fridge now, so I'm going to go make a couple days worth after this podcast and get myself rolling. I was out of the country here for a bit, so I had to do my best.
You got to get that good stuff. You're still doing the bottled stuff, which is great, but I think you're probably getting some compounds we may not even fully understand when you're doing it fresh like you are.
Yeah, the potency when it's fresh is, I mean, you can just, because the spiciness is out of control. That's why you want a little bit of the lime and a little bit of the honey, because it really kind of curves off that spiciness, makes it a little easier to handle.
Yep. So in terms of other stuff for immune, people talk a lot about bone broth, but here's the thing I've noticed with bone broth is if you've got something going on in your gut, or you're somebody who's like a really histamine intolerant person, or you think you're having like a histamine reaction, the bone broth could flare people up. So I've had people say, hey, I tried this bone broth. Everybody, promotes it and talks about it. And I tried it and I got worse. I had more sinus issues, or I had itchy eyes or runny nose or this or that. So I think bone broth is in the category of these good nutrients, but that it could have a disclaimer with it, which is that if there is a histamine reaction, it's possible you may react to it.
Yeah. So when you're sick, one of the big things that happens is it's common to have a little bit of nausea. And that nausea is there because your body has a enhanced recycling immune cell effect when you fast. And this can be super helpful. So when you're sick, it takes a lot of energy to digest food. So your body naturally wants to be in this fasting state because it can recycle your immune cells. So if you're fasting and you're nauseous, one of the best things is the ginger tea is excellent, because ginger actually helps with nausea, and that could help your appetite a little bit. There's a reason why chicken soup's been big, right? What's chicken soup? You're getting a nice broth form. Ideally, you're getting a lot of minerals and amino acids in the broth, which is really easy to digest and handle. As long as there's not a histamine issue, that's amazing, because you're getting all this nutrients really bioavailable. You're getting proteins that are already easy to digest. It's pretty easy to slurp down some really good organic chicken in a soup form. Not a lot of chewing, much easier on your digestive system. And then, of course, you could even throw some vegetables in there, some celery, some carrots, things like that as well. But much easier on your digestion. And that way you can at least get some food in there and not quite feel as nauseous. And then if you do the ginger tea, the ginger is a natural antitussin. It will help with the coughing. Number 2, it'll help with drainage and help get the sinuses to drain out. And then number 3, it's highly anti-inflammatory, and it will help bump up your appetite as well. And it's a natural prokinetic. So if you feel like you're not digesting as well, it'll kind of help gently move your digestive tract through. And then, of course, you can move to like a soup or a broth form if you're really not feeling that hungry, just to get some good fats and minerals and amino acids in, especially if there's looser stools or throwing up. We want to make sure that we don't lose those electrolytes and minerals. If we are doing that, we'll have to go to the ER and get an IV, like a lactated ringer IV with some good minerals in it. But ideally, if we can get it down the hatch, bone broth, good minerals, that'll be helpful on the mineral side.
So wild cherry bark changed my life. I had to get some last year. I don't remember exactly if it was throat soreness or swollen lymph nodes or just a cough or what it is. But I think in your ginger syrup as well, there's probably some wild cherry bark in there.
In the ginger tussin, there's wild cherry bark and ginger. That's nice. And I can kind of like gargle with that, and it hits the back of my throat.
Yep.
But the ginger tea, I really like. It's just very potent. So I'm going to go make some of that. That's huge, especially if, like, my first sign of a cold is like my throat gets a little bit dry and scratchy. First sign. And if I can hit it with the ginger, makes a huge difference.
Astragalus too, you can go pretty high. I mean, you could go 6, 10, 15, 20 grams with it. The Chinese, they were using astragalus in the base of their soup. So I've heard of extremely high dose astragalus.
Here's my astragalus right here. I've been knocking out of the park. So I have astragalus in my Immunosupreme product, but I've just been going on top of it.
Adding some extra isolated astragalus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, extra astragalus root, 600 milligrams per 2 capsules. And again, this is the whole root. Which is important. We don't just want the flower or the stem. We want the whole root. That's where a lot of these active constituents are in. What you see in a lot of, let's say, cheaper products is you don't see the whole root in there. You see like the flower, or you see a little bit of stem. You don't see the whole entire root, which is important.
Yep. Now, in terms of astragalus, I mean, it is an immunomodulator. So this is not saying everyone in the world can go straight to astragalus and hit it high dose, because it does modify the immune system. So, you could try it just on your own. But if you notice that something's not right, work with a practitioner, because we've had clients before where they're taking all these immune stimulating herbs and they're actually making their autoimmune condition worse. So if we're talking Hashimoto's or MS or RA or other autoimmune conditions, certain herbs for certain people, you've got this Th1, Th2 immune system. You may shove one system way out of balance in terms of the other and cause yourself a flare. So all immune herbs are not good for everyone across the board.
People that are in more autoimmune scenarios may be the ones afflicted the most by it. So some autoimmune, so like a lot of the andrographis, astragalus, medicinal mushrooms,
cat's claw,
they really bump up the cat's claw. They really bump up that Th1 side of the immune system, and the Th2 side, that's the humoral, that's the antibody-based immune system, and that's going to be more bioflavonoids, green tea, resveratrol, pycnogenol, OPCs, basically. Really important, like bioflavonoid compounds. So again, my biggest thing is if you're sick and it's an acute thing, don't worry about it. Yeah. Medicinal mushrooms are going to be immune builders. Herbs will be really good immune supporters, really bumping up your immune system as well. And then you have things like ginger, which can actually deactivate viruses. You have silver, which can actually help break down viruses and bacteria. And be very careful too, because a lot of people, they mistake a viral infection from a bacterial infection, and it's really hard to know the difference. And especially if your doctor's not doing a culture, like, testing you for strep or testing you from pneumonia, you may get treated with antibiotics for a viral infection that it won't do a darn thing on. And the only real viral things that are out there is going to be Tamiflu. And Tamiflu has an increased chance of psychotic episodes. So it can increase psychosis, and it only decreases the symptoms of flu by 17 hours. So it's really like a half a day. So almost, right? So it's not really much for the increased side effects, and it doesn't really boost your immune system. It's just decreasing the symptoms of the flu.
Yep.
It's not doing anything to increase, your Th1 or your Th2 immune activation, right? Th1, that's the special forces. That's the Navy SEALs. That's the Delta team. That's the Army Rangers. Those are the people that are going first line. That's Th1. Th2 is the second line. This is the infantry that comes in after all that intel comes in. I forget the terminology, when you do all this kind of data mining and you figure out where the enemies are at. You take all that information, send it back to the troops. Now the infantry can come in. Typically takes about a week for those antibodies to really get revved up, right? So now we have this intel, our Th2 is now revved up and it's coming to the site. So we really want to work on building up Th1 with a lot of the medicinal mushrooms and herbs. And then that will help us to have a better Th2 immune response, because we're going to be healthier and we're going to have better immune function. We can do some fasting if we need. We can do bone broth, and that will allow better antibodies. The antibodies are protein. They're made from protein. So if we can get some good amino acids in, even just bone broth or collagen peptides, that will help with some of the antibody production as well.
Good. Now, oregano oil, I think we should mention that too, just because it's such an easy thing that can kill such a wide variety of bad guys. So you can kill viruses, you can kill bacteria. We use it often to help kill some other gut bugs too, parasites even. Oregano may be in one of our protocols. And then you mentioned the silver, which is awesome. I know some of the protocols you've talked about, you'll combine silver with oregano. Garlic would be another extract that we use. It's great for candida. You could have a candida overgrowth. Let's say you went down the rabbit hole, like you mentioned, you get some type of cold or illness, you go to a conventional doctor. What are they going to do? Maybe they're going to put you on antibiotics. Then you're going to have a candida overgrowth that comes back. So now you're in worse shape than you were before, because now you got pumped full of antibiotics. So we might have to come back in and clean up that yeast, because If you have lasting symptoms after your illness, let's say you get like a cold, but then you stay with brain fog, you stay with fatigue, you're not rested after you sleep, maybe you've got some anxiety, maybe you've got joint pain, there's probably something deeper. So, I think you've done a great job of outlining some of the acute stuff, but you always have to loop it back to, okay, well, after the calm has come, the storm has cleared, the calm has come, what's left? And there may be some residual cleanup that you have to do in terms of the gut. So for me, like if you have infections, you're probably going to get more sick more often than a person who doesn't have infections. So you got to rule that stuff in or out too.
Yeah, and if you are taking things that will have an effect on parasites or bacteria, like I'm taking some golden seal, I'm taking some silver, so that may have an effect on my gut bacteria, and not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to be careful of what's called a rebound overgrowth. If we kill some good stuff, right, we want to make sure that we fill it up with some good probiotics. So, if you are doing a lot of killing for a week or two, you may want to come in there with, some probiotics for a week or two, and or just work on consuming some good fermented foods during that phase, whether it's, some coconut kefir kombucha or some sauerkraut, or some fermented cod liver oil. Those are all really good probiotics that you can do in your food. And depending on how much killing you do with these herbs, we may want to come in with a bottle of probiotics on the flip side, just to make sure our gut's in good shape.
Yep, good point. You may want to take this conversation elsewhere, but I thought we should mention some lab testing. So I wanted to mention some blood work and things you may want to look for on blood work that could help you indicate what could be going on. An easy one would be white blood cells. I had a woman this morning, we were looking at her blood. Her white blood cell count was around 2. And the reference range, I don't remember what it was, but it was extremely low white blood cell count. And so we guarantee there's probably some chronic infection, maybe parasites going on based on her GI symptoms. Vitamin D status, very easy to check. You want the 25 hydroxy vitamin D, not the 1 comma. You don't want that one. You want the 25 hydroxy, not the dihydroxy vitamin D. I would say if you're around 50, 60, 70, something like that would be good. Most people in the winter, they're not going to be 50, 60, 70 unless they're supplementing. Right. What else would you say to look at on blood counts or other blood tests?
So things you can do to, like, let's say you have lower immune function kind of naturally, or it's been that way for a while. Things you can do to naturally boost your immune system up will be medicinal mushrooms. So I like kind of a reishi, maitake, shiitake blend, or just reishi by itself is amazing.
Turkey tail's great too.
Turkey tail's great. I mean, a lot of these 1,3 beta glucans in there are great for the immune system. There's compounds in the reishi called triterpenes that can actually help deactivate viruses, which is great. So really good immune supporting, immune building, have been used for thousands of years. There are companies out there that have medicinal mushrooms in their coffee or tea, which can be really good too. You just want to make sure you're getting a really good quality brand. The ones that I use are all tested for the tritopene content, like a 10 to 15% tritopene content. They're tested for the 1,3 beta glucan to make sure that's there. So good medicinal mushrooms. Also, you can do shots of apple cider vinegar, which is great. The acetic acid in there can really help to strip and dry out some of the mucus in your throat. So I'm going to do some apple cider vinegar shots, which is great. Bragg's has some nice little drinks too that have the apple cider vinegar with a little bit of stevia diluted. That's really good. Next thing I wanted to highlight was we hit the apple cider vinegar, we hit the ginger, we hit some of the herbs. Anything else you want to highlight there, Evan?
I was like, my brain was in a whole nother department on the blood work. I was going to ask you, is there anything on blood work?
So yes, so I mentioned the medicinal mushrooms to boost up the immune system. You can also do cat's claw as well, or cemento, that will also boost up the immune system. So for the most part, you have your WBCs, your overall white blood cells, and then you have your never let monkeys eat bananas. That's the mnemonic device you're learning in doctorate school for remembering all the white blood cells. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils. All right. So neutrophils and lymphocytes are going to be the big ones you're going to see. Neutrophils typically go out of balance with bacteria, lymphocytes with viruses, but it could be either or. So you can look at individual white blood cells being out of balance as well. You may see that acutely. But the question is, what do you do next? Right. Yeah. And so that's where we want to really boost up the immune system. No sugar. Sugar can decrease immune function, and lots of sleep. Typically 12 hours of sleep when you're acutely sick is going to be essential to really help let the immune system rest. When you're sick, your immune system sucks up a lot of your energy. So we really have to make sure we cultivate it with supporting good sleep.
So let's mention some functional tests for a little bit, because if you see that the white blood cell count's low, maybe you've known that your white blood cell count is chronically low. Maybe that's related to your current sickness, but you may have to dig deeper. So I would say organic acids testing, because we can look at your bacterial load, see if you have bacterial overgrowth. We can look for candida, see if there's a yeast or fungal component. We can look at mitochondrial function. We can look at your amino acid metabolism. So organic acid testing to me would be a good next step. Like if you're trying to go a little deeper beyond this acute sickness, get the oat test and then the stool. We always talk about it, and we should continue to always talk about it.
Yep.
I ran my daughter's stool. You and I looked at it last week. She showed up with some H. pylori. She showed up with a Dentamoeba fragilis, a small amount, which is a parasite. Yep. She had some bacterial overgrowth. So luckily, she's only had like a couple of cold/sicknesses in her 2.5 years of life so far. But those are things in her stress or illness bucket that we don't want. So we're going ahead and taking care of those with some herbs. So if you have gut bugs, it doesn't mean that's the cause of your acute sickness. But if you're getting acutely sick and you think there's something underlying that's deeper, get the stool test run so you can confirm.
Yeah, for me, the only time I ever get sick is there's an airplane involved. I'm traveling on an airplane. And I did my vacation in Mexico, and I caught it on the way there. My son had just gotten a cold as well. So he got over it. We had some immune kind of tonics for him. He got over it, and I've gotten over it about 95%. But if you're interacting with an airplane, traveling for the holidays or whatever, lots of recycled air coming in that tube in the sky. So you really want to, in my opinion, proactively bump up your immune system when you're going on the airplane. So if get some of your immune support going a day before, 2 days before, get your immune system revved up. So when you're there, you're ready to handle it. Bring some like essential oil hand sanitizer. So if you're on the plane touching stuff, you can, pull out something and make sure your hands are relatively clean and not all the propylene glycol, alcohol-based stuff that dries you out, but something a little bit more natural. It's great. And kind of be preventative there. And then I'll open it up for questions. Anyone writing in, lots of great questions coming in. A lot of them aren't on topic. So if you guys can kind of frame your questions in regards to immune boosting type of questions, that would be awesome. And remember, if you have digestive issues during this time of being sick, bone broth, chicken soup, free-form amino acids, collagen can be great because that can bump up your antibodies, which tend to be protein-based. So fasting can help, but having a little bit of easy-to-process amino acids from chicken soup can also be really good as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention the Xlear. You were talking about travel and airplanes. So the Xlear is the nasal spray with the xylitol in there. That's good. And so if you're traveling, you could squirt some of that up your nostrils and clean everything out. Maybe there was a virus or something sitting in your nose, but it's not fully into your system yet. Maybe you can rinse that bad boy out and then prevent yourself from getting sick, even if you were around sick people.
They have that for silver as well. So you can get those with the silver kind of nasal injector. So if you are traveling, you can line that nasal canal with some silver. So if you encounter a virus from a respiratory standpoint, it potentially can get killed off in the process.
Here was a question from Bridget. How do you get complete amino acids when you do not eat meat, quinoa, or dairy?
Well, off the bat, it's going to be hard. So obviously you can combine it as a vegetarian with rice and beans. That's a reasonable way to do it. Again, methionine and lysine is going to be a missing component there. So you can combine it and you can help. The difference is you're going to get a lot of components that may be gut irritants, phytates, oxalates, mineral blockers. You also have the cross reactivity with the rice. So you got to be careful with that. You get a lot of carbs too. So you got to be careful. If you're insulin resistant, my recommendation is try to get some level of meat in there, whether it's a simple light white fish, or if you could do like some crustaceans like oysters or scallops or shrimp, that's reasonable as well, or even just some egg yolks to start. If that's too much for you, then just get a really good collagen support product, or just even a good free form amino acid powder that has all the amino acids already broken down for you. That way you're at least getting some good aminos without all of the additional carbohydrate along with it. And it's really easy to absorb.
Good point. Good point. The easy way, get some fish in, organic pastured eggs, something like that. I mean, we just find, I guess here was an earlier question from her. How do you feel about the blood type A positive and eating turkey and chicken? So this is kind of in reference to like a blood type diet. Those create more fear than they're worth. I haven't seen that it really pans out the way that it's supposed to, where, oh, this is your blood, you're supposed to react to this and this and that food. I've not seen that to be true. Can you speak on it though?
Yeah, so if you look at the blood typing diet, for the most part, you have your type O and your type A. That's the majority. O is typically going to be classified by D'Adamo, who is the author of that diet, and there's James and Peter, I think, as like your paleo template, right? And then you have type A is going to be like your vegetarian vegan template, which they do actually recommend soy in that, which I'm not a fan of at all. And then you kind of have your more balanced type, which is B. B is the balanced type, which is a kind of a balance between the A and the O. And then AB is kind of a hybrid between a vegetarian and less meat. So in general, if you look at where people have evolved, you're going to see people that have evolved with A blood types in parts of the world where they're winter. The problem with that is, for thousands of years, we have not had means of refrigeration. So it's very hard to come by a vegetarian diet when there's permafrost and it's cold for 4 to 6 months. Almost impossible, right? So if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, animal products were going to be essential because you could kill them, you could hunt them in the wintertime, buffalo, whatever, provide tons of food throughout the winter. You could make jerky, you could dehydrate it, right? You could have that throughout the winter. So it makes sense that animal products to some degree were probably consumed, especially anywhere there was winter months. And then of course, lots of tribes closer to the equator, lots of fish as well. If you look at and you study some of these documentaries that talk about the evolution of the brain, it was the higher quality amino acids and fatty acids, especially from fish and from bone marrow, that caused brain acceleration and size and growth. So my personal opinion is I think it's flawed based on how evolution has worked, based on how important these nutrients were, and based upon availability of these nutrients, especially in winter months. I think there are probably tribes that were closer to the equator that could have made that work for them. So I'm not going to say that that's, an absolute. I would never do that. But in general, that's the trend that I'm kind of putting out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in February in Kentucky, when there's a foot of snow on the ground, you're not going to go out there and get broccoli.
Forage berries. Yeah.
And forage berries. I mean, you would have had, 60 million bison roaming the U.S. at the time. Pronghorn were everywhere. Pronghorn being the, I'd like to try pronghorn. I've heard it's really, really, really high quality meat. Pronghorn is like your American antelope, so to speak. Those guys were everywhere. That's what you would have been eating in February when there's a foot of snow on the ground, not pineapple that was brought in from Costa Rica, but you live in Manhattan. It's not going to happen. That's not how it's supposed to work. Exactly.
And then also for J. Pat family writes in, what about for boosting children? So in general, with my child, I use some liposomal vitamin C when he got sick. And there's a couple of herbal tinctures that I like from Gaia Herbs. They have some children's tinctures, which use a little bit of vegetable glycerin, which is easier for kids that can't swallow pills. It's a little bit sweetened, which is nice. So, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the old Mary Poppins quote. So I like that. I use their Echinacea Golden Seal. I also use their sinus support. And then I have another immunoberry product that I like as well, with elderberry and some echinacea and some medicinal mushrooms, maitake, shiitake, and reishi. I like all of those. So those are the 4 stacks that I've been using with my son, and then also supplementing my wife with higher and more vitamin D so that can be passed in the breast milk. And if you're doing vitamin D with little ones, you'd probably want to get like a 400 IU dropper, and maybe you start with 1 to 2 drops on that. Go really low, just to be on the safe side.
Yep. And also I use Douglas Laboratories has a chewable multi that I often do for kids. It's like a natural orange flavored. They could chew it up. It's got all your methylated B vitamins that are going to be essential, your trace minerals, things to help stabilize blood sugar. That's all important too. Because if you're sick and you're not eating as much, you may have some hypoglycemia going on and blood sugar drops. That's just more stress in your bucket. So
yeah. And then Grace writes in, hey, Grace, talking about a cyst in the upper arm. So is this like in the axillary area where the arm meets the breast tissue, or just on the arm, in general? Typically, a cyst is going to be inflammation with some fluid kind of packed in there. The question is, how did it get there? If it's in that breast tissue, easily some iodine, some topical iodine can be rubbed in. If it's like fibrocystic, you can rub it into that area. Do it after you shower. That can help kind of break some of that cyst up. It just depends what the root cause is, but iodine can be very helpful on the topical side.
Maybe it's like a lipoma, obviously you'd want to go get it checked out by a doctor, have them look at it, see what it is. I mean, some may say that it's like a virus that's been encapsulated by your immune system. Like my grandfather popped up with a kind of like a cyst-like thing on his shoulder. They went in, said it's a lipoma. There's nothing we can do. It just happens. I think there's probably a root cause to it, though. But
yeah, it depends on what your immune system's doing. You can also make a poultice. You can make some poultices out of like apple cider vinegar and like turmeric paste, and you can apply it to it, and that can help the immune system topically to help reduce it. Also, higher dose systemic based enzymes like a Wobenzyme or a Vitalzyme taken away from food can also help with breaking it down. It really have to connect it back to the root cause. But sometimes the immune system is walling these things off, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a food inflammatory thing too. So you just got to get to the root.
Yeah, I guess you could throw in a little turmeric too, some fish oil, other things like that. But yeah, I mean, for us to guess or for you to guess, since she's asking you, that's a tough one.
Yep. Anything else you wanted to run by here, Evan? Any other questions that you wanted to address?
I didn't see any others that were on the immune system stuff. A bunch of other questions. Maybe we could answer another day.
Yeah. One question here I'll answer about the dog. Veronica wrote in, what's safe and good to give a dog after taking a huge dose of antibiotics? So in general, there's some companies out there that make pet probiotics. Mercola has a good complete pet probiotic. Sedona Labs has one as well that I've used that's powder form. And I would just look at whatever the recommended dose is, and I would just double it. Typically, they'll give you a scoop in there. Usually it's a 1 scoop a day thing. So I would do a 2 scoop a day, 1 in the morning food, 1 in the nighttime food. And I would just do that. If you had to give your dog antibiotics, I would work on that with them.
Yeah, good advice. There are some professional products out there too. So if you're working with a practitioner, ask them. Even though Justin and I are not vets, we do have people ask us about their pets all the time, and we do have access to some high quality stuff. So if you're working with somebody, ask them, hey, do you have any pet this, pet that? I've even seen people having good benefit with antimicrobial herbs for dogs, where instead of doing antibiotics or other pharmaceutical drugs from the vet, there are like parasite formulas for dogs and cats. So I'm not sure what was going on before this dog got antibiotics, but it's possible that there could have been something natural used instead.
Absolutely. And then someone wrote in about taking immunosuppressant drugs. So, I mean, if you're taking immunosuppressant drugs, I mean, I want to know why. Like if it's an autoimmune condition, all right, well, you got to get to the root cause of that. I mean, let's say it's something more extreme like an organ transplant, right? Well, obviously you have to be on that. So then what's the next step? I mean, I would, if you're traveling in an airplane, I would get one of the really nice masks that go on your face. They have some now that are lined with silver in the mask area, which is really nice. So that kind of prevents this barrier of viruses getting up there because they can kill it. I like that. You could also do some really good essential oils and have them vaporized. I think that would be really good, and just kind of be able to breathe some of them in, or topically even, put some in your water at like a homeopathic level and drink it. And if it's Crohn's, Tobias, I'd work with a good functional medicine doctor to get the underlying cause addressed, because you shouldn't be on those long term, maybe short run. But if you get to the root cause, you should find that you should be able to drop those accordingly, and maybe prednisone that you're on as well. But again, you got to get to the root cause. I don't know how severe your condition is specifically, but you want to work with someone that can at least progress you in that direction, and even monitor your inflammation markers, whether it's a calprotectin or ESR or CRP, whatever markers are being used, that can be looked at to assess it as well.
Yeah, well said. And get the testing done too, because we find a lot of people with Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. We work with gut issues every day, all day. That's like one of the biggest things we work on. Usually we're going to find that aloe or the cat's claw, like you mentioned, chamomile flower, vitamin A, zinc, carnosine. There's a lot of stuff we can use to try to heal up the gut and to get it to where the person can go back to their doctor and say, hey, can you wean me off these drugs? All of a sudden they can reduce the dosing of the drug, and it's because the nutrients are keeping them stable, or like you said, the root cause was addressed, like some type of infection that's driving the inflammation.
Exactly. And people listening, a lot of people are coming in with some great questions that are a little bit off topic. So I'm going to hold my live FAQs this week as well, and every week. So just try to chime in with questions that are more random during those times. And then also nutrients for immune system. Zinc's going to be really important. The zinc's really important. Vitamin A, really important for viruses. Excellent in cod liver oil. I have a couple of products that have higher dose vitamin A in it as well. Vitamin C, very high doses, 8 to 10 grams per day can be helpful just before bowel tolerance. Really good for the immune system. Magnesium is also really good. Any other nutrients that come to mind, Evan, that's good immune boosting besides those?
I would say potassium would want to be part of it, because if you're doing magnesium, maybe you're trying to get into a sauna. If you're sick, you could be throwing off your potassium, sodium, magnesium. So just having a good electrolyte blend is important. I always keep electrolytes around.
Got it. And Elizabeth writes in too about vitamin C. So you want to just make sure you're buying from good companies. Like for instance, the vitamin C that I manufacture is all independently tested to make sure what's in there, what's on the label is actually what's in there. So you want to make sure you're just buying from good, reputable sources. And liposomal vitamin C is also really good too. A little more expensive. I use it on my son just because it's liquid. It's easier to get inside of him, but a really good vitamin C, like my vitamin C Synergy, has like bioflavonoids in there as well, which are great. So just make sure you're buying it from a really good source, whether it's myself or Evan or a really good professional tier 1 line. Just don't buy the cheap ones because you may have exactly the problem. What's on the label is not what's actually in the capsule.
Oh, yeah. We see that every single day. We test people's vitamin C levels on the organic acid test. They'll say, oh, but I was taking XYZ that I bought at Walgreens or Target or Walmart. If you buy consumer grade products, you're going to get consumer grade quality, and that's not probably going to be enough. You want professional healthcare companies, which is who we use to manufacture our stuff. So the quality is key, even over quantity. I mean, you could go and take 10,000 milligrams, which is 10 grams of ascorbic acid you bought at Walmart, and we may get better results with our mixed ascorbate that was 2,500 milligrams, just much, much higher quality and a higher absorbability.
Yeah, and vitamin C, the active constituent is ascorbic acid, but I always recommend taking it with the bioflavonoids, the rutin, the histidine, all those bioflavonoids with it. That way you're getting a combination of those bioflavonoids, which, help that vitamin C complex work. So I think it's always good to do it that way.
Yep. I'd say we're ready to wrap this thing up, but if people want to reach out and schedule a call with Justin, they can. His site is justinhealth.com. You can reach out. There's more videos there too. Justin doesn't talk about it, but he's got other videos. I mean, hundreds of stuff there, articles that are there. So I'm sure if you have a question, like one lady wrote in here about edema, go on Justin's site, type in edema. There could be something on there. I mean, we've talked a lot, so all the transcriptions are there too. We may have covered that in another episode. And also consultations. You can reach out there. My site, if you want to check me out, it's evanbrand.com. There's also hundreds of podcasts there too. So if there's a topic that we haven't addressed yet, tell us, we'll make a podcast on it. But if we have done it, look in the library. I'm sure it's there.
Absolutely. Guys, give us a thumbs up. Give us a share. I'll be coming back with live Q&A. So if you have more random questions that are just kind of across the board, love answering them one by one. I think people can learn more from, just questions that we field off the fly than just maybe a structured podcast. So we kind of have the two going. That way we have this really good database. So if you aren't too ADD and you want to hear a topic, you have these podcasts, and then we have FAQs that are more all over the map, but which can be great learning tools. So we appreciate you guys and sharing and thumbs up, and hit the like button on there and hit the reminder button there. So you get the reminders up in your Facebook feed or YouTube feed when we go live.
Elizabeth did chime in. She said, yes, I'm just buying the Whole Foods brand. I should probably switch to yours. Yeah, check it out. Justin's got good stuff. I've tried it.
Yep, absolutely. And Evan has great stuff as well. You want to really make sure you buy from the best manufacturers. I can tell you, when I buy from a manufacturer and I look at the raw material being more expensive than what some of these cheaper supplements are on the shelf, it's practically impossible to sell for their prices if the raw material is the high quality. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You get what you pay for. So I hope that helps.
Yep. Good job. All right. Well, we'll look forward to talking with y'all next week.
You take care. We'll talk soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.